You're watching This Week in Louisiana Politics with Fred Childers.
Good Sunday morning to you. I'm Fred Childers. Hope you're having a great weekend. Thanks for joining us for This Week in Louisiana Politics on your local election headquarters. Louisiana's congressional maps taking center stage as the redistricting session continues at the state capitol. Political reporter Shannon Hecht takes a look at how each side is claiming they are in compliance with the Voting Rights Act.
Representatives made another push to create a second majority minority district, but there was a lot of scrutiny around the data that led to their results. There have been multiple calls by Republicans to see the data groups like the NAACP Legal Defense Fund are using to prove a second majority minority congressional district would perform.
I think it would be helpful for the committee if we had an opportunity to analyze exactly the same types of data that you use to analyze to help make our decision as well.
Representatives pushed back, saying the nonprofit has limited resources and funding, and they urged the opposition to do their own analysis to prove their belief that a second would not elect a candidate of their choice.
So that makes that data even more robust to plug into these formulas, these calculations that, again, are not secret. They're widely accepted by courts. So all of that is certainly available. I think we've provided how our expert has analyzed it.
Passionate speeches were given around the background of the state's previous efforts to stifle black voters with various suppression efforts. Advocates urged the lawmakers to allow even the debate of a second map option to go to the full House for debate.
Which side did you stand on? And don't allow another 149 years of pain and trauma go on.
In the end, the Democratic congressional maps failed in committee. Also in the committee, Representative Sam Jenkins' map for the House districts was also voted down. At the Capitol for your local election headquarters, I'm Shannon Hecht.
Meanwhile, the new leader of the Legislative Black Caucus speaking this week about what he wants to see in the new maps and the future of the organization. Rachel Riley sat in on that discussion.
That is what the Black Caucus intend to fight for. The hope for fair representation and the opportunity to build equal and just representation in the state of Louisiana.
Although the Legislative Black Caucus is under new leadership, their goals remain ambitious.
Expanding Voting Rights Act, passing police and criminal justice reform.
Redistricting is a hot topic as lawmakers battle it out at the Capitol.
But there still have not been any collaboration on where we're going to be on these maps.
The Black Caucus is advocating for more minority districts.
Black people comprise of 33% of the population, so all maps should justify and reflect this reality.
The Ronald Greene case continues to gain momentum nearly 3 years after his death.
Demanding a thorough investigation and accountability of the state police to ensure that what happened to Ronald Greene will not happen again.
Pierre says collaboration and education is going to propel these goals forward.
Hopefully we can all come together to ensure that our workforce is educated and able to deal with the many things that's going to come before us in the coming years.
That was Rachel Riley reporting. There's still a tough redistricting battle ahead for the Black Caucus. However, they say there are no plans for litigation at the moment. Well, Senator John Kennedy is weighing in on the rising crime rates seen in cities across the nation. Those cities include ones here in Louisiana, like New Orleans, Baton Rouge, and Shreveport. Kennedy is blaming leadership. Without mentioning anyone or any city by name, he points to those he believes are being soft on crime.
We have many leaders in our communities today who believe deep down that if a criminal commits a crime, it's really not the criminal's fault. It's the fault of an unfair world.
So Kennedy believes more criminal prosecutions are needed. Crime and gun violence is on the rise in almost every major city in the country, and lawmakers on Capitol Hill are calling the White House to step up. Washington correspondent Rashad Hudson has more.
Republican senators say crime in America is getting out of control.
I'm pleading with this administration to step up, to lead,
Indiana Senator Todd Young and Florida Senator Marco Rubio are calling on the Biden administration to protect communities from violent crime.
Remember the movie The Purge, where there's just one day where there's no laws and everybody can go out and do whatever they want? Well, it's become the purge in a lot of communities.
Despite attacks from Republicans saying they don't care, Democrats say reducing violent crime is a top priority. Florida Congresswoman Val Demings is pushing the Victims Act. She says it will give law enforcement more resources to fight crime.
We don't want to defund the police. We want to fund the police.
Baltimore Police Commissioner Michael Harrison says this year gun violence murders have increased compared to last year and acknowledges that in some cases, police are outgunned.
Gun violence is devastating our communities as shootings have become a daily occurrence in our nation's urban centers.
That's why Pennsylvania Congressman Dwight Evans says it's time to get illegal guns off the street.
And has created double pandemic for the people I represent.
Republicans believe voters concerned about crime will help them take back the majority in the House and Senate this fall. Reporting in Washington, Rashad Hudson.
U.S. Senate candidate Gary Chambers releasing another campaign ad, now burning a Confederate flag as he recites statistics about disparities in black communities. This comes after a campaign ad where Chambers smoked marijuana. Chambers, a Democrat, is hoping to oust Republican Senator John Kennedy in the fall elections. Democrat Luke Mixon is also running for the seat. Election day is November 8th. So many people have quit their jobs. It even has a name, the Great Resignation. Find out how it's affecting law enforcement in New Orleans. That's after the break.
This is your local election headquarters.
Welcome back. The Great Resignation is affecting every city, and New Orleans is no exception. The city's full-time workforce is down 11% since 2020, greatly affecting New Orleans' public safety sector. At the Juvenile Justice Intervention Center, more than half of the positions are vacant. And within the NOPD, 17% of the positions, dozens of jobs, are vacant.
We need to have 100% of all budgeted positions filled. It is a matter of public safety, which is also a matter of public health in our community.
The city plans to use hiring incentives like a $5,000 signing bonus for NOPD recruits and recurring retainment bonuses for officers. The city said it will need $15 million to start this plan, which it hopes to get from the state legislature. New Orleans East will soon be home to Louisiana's first resilience workforce training center under President Biden's bipartisan infrastructure law. Secretary of Labor Marty Walsh traveled to New Orleans speaking about the Biden administration's investment in the climate resilience workforce. Governor Edwards and Mayor Cantrell joined Secretary Walsh to announce the partnership, stressing local solutions to create, quote, jobs of the future.
I think we have a real opportunity right now in our country to take this momentum that's happening right here in New Orleans today and taking it right across America. And what we need is willing partners.
Secretary Walsh says New Orleans is taking the lead in natural disaster resilience training and is setting an example for the rest of the country. Louisiana transportation officials want your input on expanding I-10 in the Baton Rouge area. The Louisiana Department of Transportation and Development has already widened a chunk of the interstate in Baton Rouge, including the Acadian Thruway interchange. Agency leaders say the city's infrastructure needs to keep up with the increase in population. Construction is scheduled to begin next year.
As it has continued to grow and as Baton Rouge has continued to grow, it is way over capacity and it needs to be addressed. And if we're going to help traffic in this area, the whole West Baton Rouge, East Baton Rouge, the capital region, the state really, then there's several projects that we're going to need to do. And this is the main one.
Once the project is completed, there will be 4 lanes in each direction from I-10 to the I-110 split to Acadian. Construction is scheduled to begin next year. Chimpanzees that were once military research animals are waiting to go to their retirement home that's near Shreveport, but it'll take an act of Congress, literally. We'll talk to Senator Bill Cassidy, who signed on to that act, and find out why. Stay with us.
This is your local election headquarters.
Welcome back to This Week in Louisiana Politics on your local election headquarters. We also want to welcome to the show Senator Bill Cassidy. He's a Republican from Louisiana. Thanks for coming on, Senator.
Hey, Fred, thanks for having me. I always love being on the show.
Well, I appreciate it. We love having you on the show. We have lots to talk about. We have several subjects, but I want to start with my favorite subject so far, and that's, of course, chimpanzees. So just for the viewers' benefit, I'll set this up. There are about 20 or so chimpanzees on a military installation. They need to retire, and you helped author a bill to see that through. My first question is, why do chimpanzees need to retire, and why do we need legislation to make that happen?
About 6 or 7 years ago, the NIH decided to no longer do research on chimpanzees. And so they designated at that time Chimp Haven, which is in northwest Louisiana, which, Fred, you know better than anybody, has done a wonderful job of setting up a habitat for the chimpanzees to come live out the rest of their natural life. Now, there's some chimpanzees in New Mexico, they don't want to send them over. It costs more to keep them there, and the habitat's not as nice. So a couple of years ago, Congress passed a law, which I helped author, telling them to transfer the chimpanzees. And so far, they've still not done so. So we're trying to push the issue. It saves the taxpayer money. It gives more humane treatment for the chimpanzees, and just so happens it's located in Louisiana.
Right, it's in Keithville. You're right, I am very familiar with Chimp Haven when I was reporting in that market. We actually went out there a few times and told some pretty interesting and compelling stories, one of which was actually, I believe, some of the chimpanzees became pregnant, and that was a big surprise to the people who ran the place because they thought they had given vasectomies to all the male chimpanzees. So there was a big controversy as to who sired these kids, these baby chimps. So we had a lot of fun out there, but it's also, you're right, it's an incredible facility, and from what we could tell, the chimpanzees were treated very, very well.
Boy, talk about, huh, brother?
It made for some pretty interesting storytelling. But they were treated very well. But I'm just curious to know, I know the facility is big, but this would be a pretty big influx, right? 20 or so more chimps?
Yeah, but they have the capacity. and the decision has been made that we should do this, and it will be much more humane. And by the way, it's in Louisiana, so I take a personal interest, but it's just the right thing to do. So let's do it. Too many times we have laws that dictate and direct the right thing to be done, saving the taxpayer dollars, and somebody decides not to for whatever reason. We need to push this. A little bit of money, but a little bit of money adds up over time.
Absolutely. And I think I had read where it costs about $15,000 a year to take care of one of those chimpanzees. And that begs the question I think a lot of our viewers are probably wondering immediately. These chimpanzees who have to retire, are they hurt in any way, or are they injured from the research that they've gone through?
No, there's strict protocols as to how to manage animal research. And you have to have special permission in order to do so. But a few years ago, the NIH decided that because chimpanzees are so closely related to human beings genetically, that it was just not ethical to do the research upon them. You may decide you disagree with that, but that is the decision they made. And that's why Chimp Haven has become the haven for these retired chimpanzees.
Yeah, I did a little research before the interview, and I was amazed at the fact that it says chimpanzees represent one of the closest living relatives to humans, sharing 98% of our genetic DNA. I'm sure you'd be interested in that as well.
Yeah, and that was part of the decision at the NIH to do this. But let's just point out, it saves the taxpayer money if the law is followed. So let's save the taxpayer money and more humanely treat these retired chimpanzees.
You talked about how they're able to take on 20 more chimpanzees. Do you remember how many acres they're on?
I don't know that. I'd be curious to you because you've done some reporting on them in the past.
I know from the last time I was there, I was talking to some of the people who ran the place, and they showed me a lot of wooded area that said if they needed it, they could make that they can make that home for more chimpanzees. And of course, at that time, they were worried about chimpanzees becoming pregnant again. And they said, we're not trying to create more chimpanzees. We're trying to take care of the ones that we have. But the facility is a great facility, and I'm sure you would agree if you ever visit.
Yes, I agree.
So let's change topics. We want to talk about the Russia-Ukraine situation. By now, everybody knows what's happening on that border. But you've written some pieces lately, and you've been highly critical of the Biden administration. You believe that the U.S. could be in a better position to deal with this had President Biden made different choices in regards to energy production.
I'm going to relate several issues. Inflation is at a record high for over 40 years, in large part because of the high cost of energy. Russia feels emboldened to threaten Ukraine, and knowing their leverage over the rest of Europe is that they supply the rest of Europe with natural gas. And the Biden administration making a decision when he first got in office to do things like shut down the Keystone XL pipeline, to make it difficult to build pipelines from places where the natural resource is developed to the place where it can be refined or shipped overseas, and to stop development of new lease sales in the outer continental shelf off Louisiana. All that's tied together. It decreasing the supply of natural gas we produce, which increases the cost to us and decreases the amount that we can send to Europe so that they're not so dependent upon Russia. And by the way, did I say contributing greatly to inflation? All trace back to this administration's policy of let's kill American energy production, or at least not allow it to expand, and along with it, the jobs that go with it. It has just been a series of policy disasters.
And I seem to remember the Senate at one time wanting to slap Russia with some sanctions regarding the Nord Stream pipeline. Were you with that group?
I was with that group. The point being that the more that Europe becomes dependent upon Russian natural gas, the stronger the Russian economy becomes, the more the air is polluted because they don't do their refining like we, their development like we do, and the more leverage they have over Europe. If instead we're sending Louisiana natural gas to all ports in Europe, we're using our natural resource, we're strengthening our economy. It's better for the environment because our better environmental standards. It's better for our working families, creating jobs here, and it lessens Europe's dependence upon Russia. Now, I could give you 6 more reasons. The Biden administration has turned their back on all of this, and now we're in the mess we're in.
So you had mentioned inflation as well. What's the answer?
Yeah, so several answers. One, the Biden administration should stop trying to spend trillions of dollars they're having to borrow in order to spend. Keep in mind, they're still pushing their Build Back Better bill, which the fairest estimate of is another $4.65 trillion that would be spent. Secondly, let's enable U.S. energy production. Let's go ahead and start leasing new plots of more lease sales in the outer continental shelf off Louisiana. It takes a while to develop that, but we can't have a view about tomorrow. We have to have a long-term view. And in the meantime, they could also speed up their permitting of pipelines bringing natural gas from West Texas to the Gulf Coast. There's things they can do now to make it better, not tomorrow, but certainly within the year. They need to start doing them.
All right, we're going to leave it there. Senator Bill Cassidy, Republican from Louisiana, thank you so much for coming on. Really appreciate your time.
Thank you, Fred.
All right, stay with us. We'll be right back.
This is your local election headquarters.
Thank you for joining us for This Week in Louisiana Politics. I'm Fred Childers. Stay safe, stay informed, and I'll see you next Sunday right here on your local election headquarters.